Spring
Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 7:30 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, April 8th, 2014, in the boardroom of the Administration Building, 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the board and to transact any other business to come properly before the board. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield Board on Friday, April 4th, 2014, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, Town Clerk of Westfield, Alternative Press, and Patch.com, a meeting notice set forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. May I have a roll call? Barbara.
Richard Matesic. Lucy Biegler.
Here.
Ann Harry. Mark Friedman.
Here.
Brendan Galligan. Roseanne Kerstead.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Here.
Gretchen Olig.
Here.
Mitchell Slater.
I am here.
I guess I will lead us in the flag salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any announcements?
I do. I have two announcements. One from the intermediate school. Just a reminder, or about the intermediate schools. Just a reminder that the deadline for receipt of nominations for the 17th Annual Intermediate School Outstanding Teacher Award is Tuesday, April 22nd. 2 intermediate school teachers, one from Edison and one from Roosevelt, will be chosen to receive the award on May 14th at an Optimist dinner and will be honored at a Board of Education meeting in June. Students, parents, and staff are encouraged to submit nomination letters to Outstanding Teacher Award Committee of the Optimist Club of Westfield, care of Office of the Superintendent, Westfield Public Schools, 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, 07090. Letters also can be mailed to Optia Award, OPTIAWARD, at westfieldnjk12.org. The second announcement is that the Westfield Odyssey of the Mind will be hosting its second annual showcase on Wednesday, April 23rd from 6 to 8 at Edison Intermediate School. The community is invited to find out what this creative problem-solving competition for kids is about and how to get involved. Admission is free, but donations to support the Westfield Odyssey program are kindly accepted. For questions, please email westfieldodyssey@gmail.com. That's all I have.
I also have two. This first one is from Fine Arts. Congratulations to Westfield High School's Drama Department for receiving 8 Montclair State University Theater Night Award nominations for the school's fall drama, Metamorphoses. The nominations include Outstanding Achievements in Sound Design, Stage Crew, Costume Design, Stage Direction, and Acting Ensemble. Also, Outstanding Production of a Drama, Outstanding Overall Production, and Outstanding Performance by a Supporting Actress in a Drama for Jessie Zimmerman's role as Mira. Congratulations. And also from the Ed Fund, the Education Fund of Westfield is holding its annual wine tasting and auction on Saturday, April 26th from 7 to 11 p.m. at the Echo Lake Country Club. Proceeds fund grants for teachers in our schools. For more information, contact westfieldnj.com/edfund.
6 intermediate school students were selected to showcase their artwork at the Elizabethtown Gas Company in Union, New Jersey. A special award ceremony was held on March 24th to honor the Westfield students and recognize their unique artist talents. These students are Tahani Ahmed, Derica Lara Rodriguez, Elena Jones, Amanda Zhang, Shay Elliott, and Alicia Israel. Members on a committee from the Art Educators of New Jersey made the final selections. The chosen Westfield pieces included 4 paintings, 1 pen and ink, 1 drawing, and 1 using colored pencil. The Edison Intermediate School award-winning artists are students of Allison Hooper and Helen Fries.
Okay, world language. Congratulations to students in the Spanish 2 honors class at Westfield High School who combined their knowledge of language and history to make an award-winning video. Earning first place in the Montclair State University Spanish Day Film Festival on March 28th, the video, entirely created by Westfield High School freshmen, beat out all other schools in New Jersey, including those represented by upperclassmen. Oh, really? Okay. And Busca de un futuro mejor, in search of a better future. Thank God it wasn't Mandarin. Is a 5-minute video based on historical events concerning forced disappearances in several countries in Latin America in the 1970s and 80s. Attending the awards ceremony were Juliana Yang, Max Wasilewski, Zoe Rader, Emily Sackett, Sophie Hurwitz, Noah Bram, Ben Norton, Katie Colleran, Erica Chung, Jillian Martinez, Emma Pettit, and Emily Oster, and teachers Liz Schultz and Katie Foley. The film festival was held during the second half of Spanish Day at Montclair State and attended by 15 schools and 400 students. And the first half of the day consisted of workshops entirely in Spanish. Congratulations.
That's great.
Just keep winning.
Furthering Westfield High School news, 8 Westfield High School students have achieved perfect scores in January on the SAT and in March on the ACT standardized tests widely used for college admission criteria. They include Catherine Coe, ACT English, William Crenshaw, SAT Writing, Brian Johnson, SAT Math, Andrew Zale, ACT Science, Griffin Mooney, SAT and ACT Math, Albert Chen, SAT Reading and Writing, William Chen, SAT Writing, and Benjamin Howell, ACT English. This group of students brings to 29 the total of perfect SAT or ACT scores thus far in the 2013-14 school year in Westfield. That sounds like a wonderfully high number. Congratulations to our students.
First, I'd like to welcome back Lucy Beegler. We missed her at the board table. Hope you're well.
Thank you.
And then I'd just like to make an announcement that Westfield Public Schools will be closed beginning April 14th through April 19th. We wish everyone an enjoyable spring break. Secondly, April 22nd, we will have a short business meeting of the board, followed by a board workshop. And then the next full board meeting will be held Tuesday, April 29th, here at 302 Elm Street. We will have the public hearing on the 2014-2015 budget at that time. I'd like to recognize the public for agenda items only. Seeing no one come to the podium, I will turn it over to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. And certainly, our students in Westfield depend on a strong and supportive guidance and counseling department. And each year, the board likes to hear updates about how that department is working this year. And for that, it's my pleasure to introduce Maureen Mazaris, who is the head of our guidance and counseling program.
Hello, everyone. This is a new orientation for me,
Yeah.
so it's nice to see some of you from this direction and continue to try. Thank you for inviting me. Actually, it was just over a year ago that I was here to give you an update on what was happening in counseling K through 12 in the district. And a few board meetings after that, I was appointed as the director of counseling for this year. And unfortunately, I was not able to be at that meeting, so I wanted to steal a minute or two tonight to just express my gratitude for your support and for your appointment, and particularly for allowing me to continue to do something that I was enjoying for 2 years before, and now enjoy in an even broader capacity. I want to particularly thank you, Mark, for your difficult questions in the interview. They kept me on my toes. It was wonderful. And now on to the State of Counseling 2014. I have said before, and I will say it again, Westfield counselors are dedicated and skilled professionals. At the elementary, middle, and high school levels, counselors are meeting the needs of all students, working in a developmentally appropriate way and living up to and beyond the standards established by the American School Counselor Association, our content standards, and always to the mission of the District of Westfield. Our focus is in three ways. Our focus is on academic development, on career development and college readiness, and on personal social development, three key aspects to successfully completing school and successfully living life. Our counseling goals are very specific. They're to develop programs and procedures that reach all students, to recognize the importance of individual student planning in all areas, to develop services that are responsive and timely, to use counselor time effectively and efficiently, to be current in changes and trends in the college application process, as well as changes and trends in career opportunities and all post-high school options for students. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. To expand our connections with colleges and universities, to work effectively with administrators, teachers, support staff, boards of education, with an emphasis on mutual respect and appreciation for the job that each of us do. The IRS committee is a good example of the kind of collaboration we strive to foster. We try to develop collaborative relationships with resources in our own community, especially expanding our network of referrals in the mental health care community. Referrals in the mental health care community continue to be a challenge. This is going to be a political statement on my part, as mental health continues to be the orphan of the healthcare system. That's enough commentary, I'm sure. We always strive to maintain positive relationships with parents and to communicate effectively in all the ways we have at our disposal, and to look periodically, carefully at data and narrative feedback that tell us how we're doing. These are the same goals I identified last year. They may sound familiar. They stay the same because they are the bedrock of any effective school-based counseling program. So if we know what we stand for and what we strive to do, how do we see it happening? Counselors are different than teachers. We're support staff. We support students, teachers, parents, supervisors, principals, child study teams. We wear a lot of hats and we juggle a lot of balls. We do it passionately, professionally, and oftentimes privately in ways that can't and don't get measured. I looked for inspiration, an idea, something that would make it clear, paint a picture, tell a story, make it exciting to hear. I looked for inspiration everywhere. I thought long and hard. One night, as I was thinking about tonight, I looked desperately at my nightstand and said, well, there it is. This is my reading material. This is the pile of books that I'm reading. And maybe if I tell you what I'm reading, you'll think or understand a little bit more about what we do. I'll tell you what I'm reading. Brainstorm. This is a lot of these are recommended reading, by the way. Brainstorm, the power and purpose of the adolescent mind. Change, the principles of problem formulation and problem resolution. I especially like the chapter entitled The Utopia Syndrome. The DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Illness. Not an ordinary bedtime read, but fascinating and interesting for the work that we do. Another favorite of mine, as I look at students and wonder sometimes about the quiet ones. It's a book called Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. The trophy kids grow up, how the millennia generation is shaping the workplace. It's how it's shaping me as a counselor. It's how it's shaping a department as we try to look forward to find out what it is our kids really want to do or not do. My well-worn copy of Kim Marshall's book, now dog-eared on Chapter 9, Summative Assessment, highlighted more than unhighlighted, and one lone novel entitled The Reason I Jump, a memoir of a 13-year-old boy with autism.
I read that.
It's
That's
wonderful.
Incredible book.
Isn't it wonderful?
Incredible.
And those books are really not what we're here to talk about, but they do kind of span the scope of what it is I think about when I think about what counselors need to do, think, know about, and work for. But I decided that my reading list may not be the focus of what you want to hear about and may be too personal. So I thought long and hard again. How do I focus my presentation in a way that informs and updates you and the community about K-12 counseling? I decided to sort my thoughts into two piles, data and direction. Data will give you some idea of the numbers of things we do, all kinds of numbers. Direction will attempt to describe ideas, trends, things we've done that might breathe some life into the numbers and offer some insight into our thinking. So here we go. Here's some data to illustrate how we meet our goals. Elementary school. This year I have met with elementary school counselors individually and as a group several times, multiple times. In our last meeting, I told them that one of my goals for this evening's presentation was to focus a bit more on their day. What do you do? I wanted to be able to tell you exactly what they do on those days, that they are in our buildings. 4 elementary school counselors work in 6 buildings. No school has a full-time counselor, but all schools have a fully committed counselor. Collectively, these counselors are seeing over 237 students individually on any given week. Some seeing as many on any given month, some seeing as many as 65 students per week. Over 60 students are participating in group counseling each week. They fit in class lessons when they can. They serve on INRS committees, 504 committees. They share the responsibilities of scheduling, maintaining records, case managing, writing action plans, and maintaining yearly logs for those meetings. They are anti-bullying specialists. They attend meetings daily, weekly, hourly, and adjust to the protocols of the schools they work in, because each school has a personality of its own. They do in-service, they do evening presentations for parents, annual reviews, and some of them walk around with a walkie-talkie because they need to be available at a moment's notice. Each time I visit them, I am, and I mean this, slightly awed by what they do in very small found spaces. One's office still says janitorial closet. That they spend their time in found spaces with very young children with diverse needs and problems, and children who want all the time that they can get with their counselor. The list of things they help children with is very long. They help children with decision-making, social skills, academic difficulties, impulsivity and self-control, coping skills, divorce and family changes, grief, mourning, anger, friendship, anxiety, school phobia, and life. When I asked them what they were most proud of, they said it was their ability to provide support for children and see growth over time, to be recognized as a valuable member of the school staff, and that simply kids like and want to see them. When I asked them what their biggest challenge was, the answer was the same. Time, they say. I just need more time. In middle school, it's different. Counselors at the middle school have counselor caseloads of about 265. They vary a little bit from school to school. I visit them often. I watch them in action. I see them doing counseling all day, every day. I know that they meet in weekly court team meetings. They serve on INRS committees. At Roosevelt, they work with the Effective School Solutions counselors. They are 504 case managers. They take on responsibilities for NJ Ask. They work with their principals and vice principals in scheduling. They each lead active, important peer leadership programs. They're in lessons. They do big events. Maybe I'm preempting some of their good news for you, but today we learned that Edison's Mix It Up Day was honored by the Southern Poverty Law Center out of Teaching Tolerance as a Mix It Up school, just one of only 76 in the nation. It was a fabulous day. I loved every minute of it. When I asked them what they are most proud of, they said the kids and their strength as a counseling team. They really are the souls of their building, and they are excellent examples of teamwork as they work with each other and with building administrators. I think they are near perfect models of middle school counselors. At the high school, life is different. Our jobs are different, our day works differently. Our student counselor ratios are about 205 to 1, and that's wonderful. And for that, I say thank you. That puts us in line with national school standards, and it really keeps us in line with comparable school districts. And the ability to deliver the service is directly related to the number of students you have to work with. We have just completed, to give you an example, about 1,900 individual scheduling meetings with students. We are one of the few schools in the county that actually schedules children individually. In most schools, counselors go into a classroom, they read the course options, children write them down on a piece of paper, they collect them, and we go home. We continue to hold to the belief that sitting with a child one-on-one is the best way to pick courses, but also to get to know the child. We are about to finish up 450 junior conferences. This year, we made 27 classroom visits to review the college application process and to try to explain the ways that Common App screwed itself up. We did 31 Naviance and Common Application workshops. Each counselor has written approximately 50 letters of recommendation. We've done 2 essay workshops, 5 parent evenings. We hosted 200 colleges at College Night, up 25 from last year. We hosted 142 college reps. Each college rep is interviewed by a counselor before meeting with a student, and that counselor becomes our personal connection to that college admissions office. We have currently completed 48 college tours. Today, I have a counselor in Ohio visiting 7 schools that will be new to us, and we hope new to our students. This year, we sent out, so far, 3,484 transcripts, averaging 8.1 per student. I told you I had data, I told you, which is an increase of about 13%. 44.2% of those transcripts were for early decision or early action, which will inform one of our initiatives for this year and next year. We are case managing 61 INRS plans, 54 504 plans. Counselors have attended approximately 150 annual reviews. We run support groups for boys, for girls. Interestingly enough, our newest support group is for students with concussions, and it's a large group. We do countless individual and crisis sessions with parents, with students, and with administrators. When I ask high school counselors what they are most proud of, they say humbly, doing it all. Clearly, we support children with all of our individual and collective skills, our training, and our experience. We work together with each other, and we work together with our buildings. We continue what we know to be effective, and we look for ways to improve. These are some of the things we've done that might be a little bit new and interesting for us now and moving forward. Our year began with a district-wide in-service about SGOs, student growth objectives. It was new territory for most staff, but really new territory for support staff and for me. Dave Dilks and I spent the day, and the in-service day, with counselors and nurses. We didn't have much to go with, as specialists are on the optional list for SGOs. Paul Pinheiro was extremely helpful in providing some resources, but they were sparse. So I was a little worried going into that we might be dealing with some anxiety and maybe even some resistance. After all, we were in the optional category. We were right about the anxiety, but I was wrong about the resistance. Elementary school counselors gathered in one corner, middle school counselors in another corner, high school counselors in another corner, and nurses in the 4th corner of the room. They worked all day and past the 3 o'clock end of day. You should know that among the districts that regularly attend the Union County Directors of Guidance meetings, we are the only district that required SGOs, and we now serve as a model for others. I have presented there twice and have been asked again to just talk about how we made that happen in Westfield. I didn't, they did. For elementary school counselors, the SGO in-service was an opportunity to set some goals, to plan together, to support each other throughout the process. Common meeting time for them is challenging to schedule, but very needed. They are only all elementary school counselors are only here 2 days a week, and one of those days is devoted after school primarily to faculty meetings and grade level meetings and PLC meetings and SGO meetings. But we're working at it. They loved working as a team, and they work as a team very, very well. They love and they need to share ideas. They also need to share resources, as they are hard to come by. We met a while back to work together on the suicide prevention in service for elementary schools, and it was important and wonderful to watch them bring what they knew to that discussion and turn it into presentations that were perfect for the schools they deliver them in. The logistics of meeting with them more are tough, but they are not insurmountable. To this date, suicide prevention in service has occurred in 7 of our schools, and the remaining 3 are on the calendar for this month. Counselors have worked with me and their principals to develop a presentation that was tailored to the needs of their school, to the age levels they work with, and to provide staff with essential information, policy review, and resources. Middle school counselors have expanded their character education initiatives and peer leadership models to include more classroom lessons, and interesting, more classroom lessons led by peers. If you haven't checked out the Roosevelt Counseling Quarterly, you should. It's wonderful, it's theme-based, and it's really informative. Roosevelt also has earned a grant, got a grant from the foundation, and they have set up a lending library for parents, books that they might find useful in trying to understand their children and maybe even themselves. As I said earlier, Edison has really set the bar high for Mix It Up Day. When I ask counselors, K through 12, what they are dealing with most in terms of social and emotional issues, each counselor, every single counselor, said the same thing: anxiety. Anxiety ranging from some manageable worry to handicapping anxiety in some of our students. At every level, counselors are taking advantage of workshop opportunities to help students deal with difficult emotions and life experiences. They've attended trainings on 504 plans for emotional issues, mindfulness as a coping strategy, anxiety management, autism, and grief counseling. We read and we regularly share articles. We're also seeing more students on home instruction for reasons that substantially impact their ability to do schoolwork, and we're working diligently to find ways to get them back to school and to work. Online learning looks promising, but it needs a careful look. At the high school, our use of Naviance grows. One department SGO was to have all sophomores started on a resume, a wonderful feature of Naviance. Why a resume? Resume is an important way for students to gather data, to learn what they do with their time, what they want to do more of with their time, and to plan. We see the resume as a way to reflect, to plan, maybe even get a job. I belong to a Naviance user group where we keep each other informed of challenges and changes in Naviance and new applications. Just yesterday, Naviance opened a window on the, Naviance has 4 tabs. One is demographics, one tab is careers, one tab is about me, where students get to do a personality inventory and build their resume. The 4th is college. I put it out there so that you understand that in the concept of preparing for college, we need to talk about the student, who they are, what they like to do, and then where they're going to go. Naviance just featured a new feature on the career tab. You can check it out. You can all go to Naviance through the website. It's called Road Trip Nation. I don't know if you've ever seen Road Trip Nation on television, but Road Trip Nation started out with a group of young people who literally got in a van and started driving around the country to talk to people with interesting jobs and to find out why they do those jobs and what was hard to get that job and what they learned that they would do differently if they had to do it over again. And so about 3,500 of these road trip videos are now available to any student on Naviance. And they're collected in 4 ways. You can look for the career. You can look for the theme. I want to talk to somebody who really cares about creativity. I want to talk to somebody who really cares about political thought. I want to talk to somebody who really stresses a lot. Another theme is talking to individual people whose names you might know. 3,500 opportunities to go to a mini career expo in your home at any time in your pajamas. It's really interesting. At high school, last year the counseling department also decided that we wanted to become more familiar and educated regarding post-high school options other than the traditional 2- and 4-year colleges. We perceived a need, but wondered how real the need is. So at the beginning of this year, we surveyed all the juniors in the high school. It was a simple survey, and it says, do you know anything about what you can do after high school besides college? If not, would you be interested in learning about some of those other things? And after that, we got a core group of students who responded with a definite yes, and they became our target group for an SGO. To that end, counselors have met. We decided to learn as much as we could. So to that end, we have met with representatives from 7 technical or trade schools. 34 of our students went to an all-expense-paid trip to a college and career day at New Jersey City University, where they and the counselors had the opportunity to meet with representatives from dozens of programs and schools. We feel that that's important because we are only doing our job if we do it for all students. And we feel that we are only doing our job if we allow kids to explore all things. We save some money. Technology has saved us some money, primarily in paper and postage. and it has allowed for some technology upgrades at the high school. We've been able to upgrade some laptops and to buy some iPads so that counselors are free to move around with their data, so that they can take them with them on college tours, when they attend meetings, when they work at home, and when they work on the road. We've been working with some pretty old technology, and the counselors are thrilled. We've used some data and student-parent feedback to reorganize our counseling calendar. You might remember that I mentioned at the beginning that 48.1% of our transcripts went out early decision or early action. So after 2 years of paying attention, really paying attention, we've revised our calendar and moved everything up. I fear that we're going to be doing this in kindergarten soon, but I'm going to hold the line on that for as long as I can. But we have moved our whole calendar up so that students and counselors have as much time as they need to get the job done. It's very difficult to write 50 letters of recommendation, 50 really good letters of recommendation by November 1st, while you're also doing everything else. So we moved it up. We moved it up in the hopes that we will make it a little bit easier and a smoother transition. Next year, our Naviance bundle, because we've saved some money, our Naviance bundle will expand as we integrate Alumni Tracker into our package. Remember I told you that there is a book on my nightstand about the millennia generation, and I do have some thoughts and questions about what are kids really doing out there? What is it like to be 25 right now and 28? The book is interesting. You should read it. But we are buying Alumni Tracker. And the reason that we're doing it is because it really does help us in measurable ways, real data, to find out what happens to students after they leave Westfield High School. Through the Naviance Alumni Tracker, we connect to the National Student Clearinghouse. We will be able to find out how our students' GPAs and test scores correlate to post-high school completion. Not acceptance, but completion. That's really important. I think we're going to do fine there. We can also find out who completes college, who transfers to another college, who drops out of college, what their majors end up being, and for many of those students, what their jobs end up being. For me, this is really important information as we continue to counsel kids towards what it really will be like wherever it is you go. I really want to know what the millennia generation is doing. I know some things about them. Did you know this? The millennia generation, one thing they value more than anything is a flexible work schedule. You shouldn't become a teacher. It's really hard. They want to work in workplaces where their colleagues are their second family. They are willing and very happy to do everything much later, which is why they're coming home and staying home. They are also willing to work for less, but they don't want to compromise a lifestyle. It's hard. It's hard, but that's who they are. They also are creative. They're entrepreneurial in all of their thoughts, and they're probably going to end up doing jobs we don't even know about yet. They're going to many of them, make their own career, create something new. It's been a good year for counselors, and I appreciate the opportunity to tell you about it. It is always fun to boast. I thank you for listening and for your ongoing support, and I promise that we will keep going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Questions or comments? Mitch?
First of all, thank you. That probably one of the, and this is not an insult to anyone else that's given a presentation, but in my 4 years on the board, that may be one of the best presentations I've ever heard.
Thank you.
That was fantastic, and I applaud you for it. Really, just so cohesive, and I learned a lot. Two questions. First one. When you say the biggest emotional issue is anxiety, I guess the obvious question is, what are we doing? I guess what have we learned? What are we doing? I mean, it's not, Race to Nowhere, I know, is being shown again at the school. I mean, these things continue, the anxiety. I mean, I'm living it now with a junior in high school, but everyone lives it throughout the cycle. And I'm just curious what kind of we've learned and what you think the counselors are doing.
It's an excellent question. One of the things that I try to live by is to say not what's the answer, what's the best question. And I think the answer to your question is the question, what underlies anxiety? And so it then becomes not general anxiety, but yours. Where is yours coming from? And I think it can come from normal life. Sometimes life makes you anxious. I think last year we saw a lot of kids who were anxious because of Sandy, for whom that experience didn't go away as quickly as it did for us, even if it did go away for us, and it lingered a little bit, and I think that is still there. I think that some of it goes, this generation is sometimes referred to as the Peter Pan generation, where I want to go to Never Never Land and never grow up, and so some anxiety comes from that. I also think a lot of anxiety comes from fear that they won't get it right, whether it's the right grade, the right friend, the right outfit, the right bicycle, the right everything. And if you have time in your busy lives, she's also on my nightstand, but the list was really too long. There's a social worker, her name is Brene Brown. She's fabulous, and she believes that there are two things in life, one that will save us and one that will drown us. And the one that will drown us is shame, and not the kind of shame we think about, but the shame that comes from, am I who I'm supposed to be? What mistakes did I make, and who knows about them? And the other one is the gift of vulnerability, how important it is to allow yourself to be vulnerable to things, to mistakes, to life, and I think that we have a lot of kids who are afraid to be vulnerable. And so we're working on that. I mean, literally, we encourage kids to make a mistake. It's probably not going to be the end of the world if you make a little one before it becomes a big one. I also think that we're looking at a lot of kids who just, I think fatigue and anxiety go together. I think that's true for us. Overextension creates tension. I just made that up. But I think that that's true. So we continue to strive for balance. What we try very hard to do is to not label it. It is in DSM. It's in DSM in multiple forms, but I will never pull a DSM out in front of a child and say, you have that. That's really a mistake. So we try to make it personal, label it, to give some tools, and then to allow kids to be less than what they think they have to be, or who they think they have to be.
Okay.
Nobody goes through life without some anxiety.
No, of course
I mean,
not.
if you do, then you're not living.
Right, that's true.
So.
The second question, so all these incredible things that you've added in the last year, and I really think it's terrific what you're doing with Naviance and really capturing the essence of what that can do, an alumni tracker and the job thing. So how are we going to get the word out? What suggestions do you have? As you know, I'm always pushing the social media agenda from the district side, not as far as getting the word out, and we tweet and everything, and we're still figuring out Facebook and everything. But just thoughts that you may have about being able to get that message out there to parents, because there's, you have some kids that tell you everything, and then you have most kids that tell you nothing. And some parents are involved and they're in the PTOs and they learn, but that's not everybody. Right. And I'm just wondering what we're doing and what we can do to get this message out there.
I think one of the things that I'm trying to do more of is to actually use the parent portal for that, and Genesis. I think emails are, I'm not sure they're as effective as I would like, because I frequently get a parent with a frantic response to an email they're reading in the car. And I know that they've only read 15 words of the 45-word email. So I think that is one way. I think that I'm looking forward to Edline, to the ways in which, as a counseling department, we might get information out and change it, make it look more attractive. We're trying a lot with parent nights. At the high school, it's really interesting, because I have to say, and I need to be open and honest, that there's a bit of a divide in counselor thinking in terms of how much we should be telling parents as compared to how much we should be telling students. I personally believe that we need to tell parents everything. Well, not everything, because when the student comes to you and says, I hate my parent, we kind of keep that to ourselves a little bit. A lot of the time. Yeah. But, and I think that we have to do a better job of that. And before we get it out, I want to make sure that we're getting it out correctly and accurately. We are using, Naviance itself promotes itself, which is very interesting. You can send blasts through Naviance directly to parents that tell them. We'll have a blast going out. After I'm going to a Naviance user group on Friday afternoon to really take a good look at Alumni Tracker, because I don't want to send anything out there until I know it's absolutely the truth and it's absolutely going to happen. So as soon as that happens, we'll get it out. But I think you're right. I don't tweet.
Yeah.
I guess I should, no, I don't know if I want to, but,
Well, I'd be curious to know what Naviance thinks and if there are any best practices, especially with, with using social media, and probably Facebook would be more of the, where
Right.
you have more people probably, using
Right.
that medium. But, just whatever is possible to get the message out. The nights are very good. The nights are really, I've attended many over the years. They keep improving and they're really well done. But,
It's a
I
good
just,
point.
there's always people that are missing things. And just,
it's a good point.
so thank you again.
I'll work at that. Gretchen?
Yeah, thank you also for the incredibly informative presentation. Mr. Altman, I don't think she said once, right?
Thanks to the training that we
I'm curious about this alumni tracker. How does it, are alumni gonna have to self-input information in order for us to keep track of that, or?
No, you upload the data that you have in your system. So all of our students are in the system. You upload it to Naviance. They upload it to the National Student Clearinghouse. So if the student is in the clearinghouse, which they very likely will be if they're in college, that's how it blends. We're not sending emails to students saying, please sign up. So it comes that way.
And then it then tracks if a student is transferring or if
Correct.
a student doesn't complete.
Correct.
So who we lose are the students who don't go on to colleges or universities, I guess.
Correct.
Okay.
For now. Correct.
I'm sorry, were you a question about that? Go ahead.
Yeah,
Jump in. Yeah.
can I just jump?
Yeah.
So, since you're gonna go to this user group, can you find out, or maybe you already know, how do we fill in that gap, right? I guess I think a number of us at different times have talked about how best to keep track of our alumni for many of the comments that you made. I think that the ability to network is, I think you're doing it for trackability. I'd want to be able to ultimately do it, well, among many things, but one of them is about networking. So, if I'm in high school and I don't know anybody that went to the college that I might be interested in, in my mind, I'm going to Naviance, I can see who's going to XYZ college, and maybe I could write them a note. If I can ultimately, now I'm in college, and I'm trying to find somebody in the digital space that went to Westfield High School, I can find somebody that perhaps is doing that and now write them an email, and that I have the one thing in common, that we both are from Westfield.
I do not think that the Naviance Alumni Tracker will do that. There's probably a way to do that, but that particular application will not take us there yet.
Okay. It's too bad, because
It is, well, I
Data
think
isn't
one of the.
personalized, because the data isn't personalized, or because?
No, because it's just not meant to
Yeah.
then create, it gives us data.
it's
It
a
doesn't give
mirror.
the alumni access to each other.
Right, okay.
It's not meant to create a LinkedIn or, anything like that.
Right.
It's meant to protect, I don't want to do that. I just don't want to be giving out that information. So it doesn't provide that opportunity, no.
Thank you. Sorry, Gretchen.
No, that's all right. Two other, I think, relatively quick questions. One is, do we have counselors at Lincoln? You mentioned the 4 counselors at the 6 elementary schools. We don't have anybody
No.
at Lincoln. If we have a need there, do one of our elementary school counselors
Yes.
attend to it, or is
Yes.
that what we do?
I think
And
there is a
then,
need. Yeah.
in terms of our beginning next year growing high school population, are y'all ready? Are we?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, we just, we've finished course requests. We're setting up sections. Staffing's ready. I think one of our biggest issues at the high school is going to be space. Mary Asfendis and I have walked around and investigated every closet, to see what's usable space, and there's not a lot of it. But, we'll do what we have to do. Yeah.
We'll take it year by year as that population
Yeah,
continues to grow.
and you never know what your population is until the day school opens, because kids, it's interesting, there's a lot that goes on in the counseling office in the summer. Lots of withdrawals and lots of enrollments, and for the most part, they have balanced out in the last few years that I've been tracking it, but you just never know. You don't know.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else?
Ginny?
I'm just going to key off a couple of things you said. Thank you very much, Maureen, for your presentation. The Lincoln connection. What do you see as need and support area?
I've had a few conversations with Audrey about that. You know, there are children there, and children need to talk to somebody. And I think that she feels that there are children that on any given day would benefit from having a counselor. She said we've actually talked a little bit about some of the ways that we're starting to think about what that might look like as a trial. But there are a lot of students that for whom transition from one level to the next is difficult. And that happens to 5-year-olds in kindergarten. I mean, it's a big change. And she would like some support, I think, in transitioning all of those children, but also in transitioning specific children whose needs may need a little more. You know, the things that you can do with little children in small amounts of time and in small places is important. But the earlier you teach a child the language of feelings and the ability to express those feelings, and not just feelings, but to connect their feelings to their thoughts, the better they grow. The better they grow. And the better they learn. And I think that when that's built in with a counselor who's trained to do that, then you increase the likelihood that that can happen. It's a beautiful school. Congratulations to you. It's beautiful down there.
Thank you. I can see how that is valuable. And over the years, we've had many conversations at the table about expanding counseling services, certainly when we considered elementary school years ago. It wasn't a given,
Right.
or an easy sell. And so it's important to hear this conversation even at a very ground level, foundational time, before it gets introduced as a possibility and a real need.
Thanks.
You mentioned concussion support group at the high school. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah.
It's a very troubling
It is.
area, and I know that we've had,
It is.
we have a policy, we have extra support for our athletes and our trainers and our coaches. What are you seeing?
Well, first of all, we're seeing increasing numbers. And it harkens me back to when we started to identify school with students with emotional issues. And I thought to myself, by putting the word out there, are we creating this problem? Or, do kids always have concussions and we didn't know about it? I think yes and no. I feel strongly both ways, if that's possible to say. But we definitely have kids with clearly diagnosed concussions, and you can see it. For those kids who are suffering, you can see it. They struggle. They're in pain. You can see the ways that they shun the light. They can't read. They can't concentrate. They even have trouble sleeping. And so many of them will need a period of home instruction. The problem with the home instruction is that home instruction is based on the belief that you have the ability to do work at home and that you have the ability to do work independently. But when you struggle with a brain injury, and that's what a concussion is, you have to suspend that, sometimes, hopefully, for a short period of time, for 2 weeks. But we're seeing kids who are 3, 4, 5 months down the road still struggling. Many of them are struggling with the results of a second or a third concussion. And I will tell you, we have a concussion group now, and I've been sitting in on it because I love group. What you learn from kids in group is just, it's so informative. It's amazing. And there's one young girl there, and she's not being truthful. She's not telling the truth to her doctor, and she's not telling the truth to her parents because she wants to keep playing. She just wants to keep playing. And so the group, as only kids can do, sat her down in the group and said, listen, lady, this is not okay. And they took 3 sessions, but they got her to go and tell her parents. So for a lot of kids with concussion, it's not just the physical injury, it's the emotional upsetment, it's the distress and the disappointment that comes with that. They have to give up things they love to do. They have to give up courses they really wanted to take because they just can't do them anymore. The anxiety increases because they're falling further and further behind because they just can't do it. The further they fall behind, the more overwhelmed they feel, the more pressure they experience, and the worse the headache gets. So we're really trying to figure out how to support them in the best way we can. We find, now we have doctors that are writing script that say nothing for 2 weeks. Do not read, do not write, do not watch television, don't use your phone, nothing. Well, when you tell a teenage kid, you can't use your phone, you can't text, you can't tweet, you can't Facebook, they're not happy campers. They're just not happy people. So the support group, it's interesting because we have kids at all levels of recovery from their concussion. They're teaching each other, but they're also informing us. One of the activities we did with them is, what do you want your teachers to know about your concussion? And it was really interesting. And it was things like, I'm not being lazy, I'm not lying, I'm not telling the truth, I really can't do it. Nobody's more disappointed in my work than I am. So that's what we're seeing, and it's hard. It's really hard. And for a lot of those kids, what they are struggling with is something that a lot of us never have to struggle with till much later in life. They really have to create a new normal. And that's hard when you're 15. A new normal that's not like what you had. It's tough.
So how is that information that you're learning in this group being communicated to teachers?
Well, one of the things
coaches,
we did was to generate a
parents,
list of these things.
professionals?
These are the things the kids told us. And we're now, when a kid has a concussion, we're generating that information directly to the teacher. These are what kids are telling us are hard assignments for them. These are things that kids are telling us are manageable assignments. This is how a kid will let you know that they can't take that test today and be okay with that. So it's a matter of it, but we're all confused. I have to tell you, we're all confused about where to go with this and at what point. At what point can you not learn or not teach?
Right.
We did have one boy last year who had to repeat the year. And it was sad, but he just couldn't. He had to take the rest of the year off and recover. And he's back, but he's not the same.
What sport was that?
Soccer.
Are you saying the soccer's the highest amount? Or just
Interesting. Gymnastics has caused a few.
Yeah.
But that's the same at gymnastics. Nationally, one of the highest concussion sports, I don't think that's true for us, but is field hockey.
Yeah. Any kind of hockey is
Yeah.
always right up
Yeah.
I
there.
thought it was girls' soccer.
Yeah, girls soccer, because girls, a very interesting article on girls. Girls are probably not designed to head the ball. And
Yeah.
they do it anyway, and they
the
suffer
neck
from it.
strength.
Yeah, yeah. And football, but actually not as much in football as you would
Right,
think.
'cause they have
And then
to-
we have kids who
they're
fell in the
kids.
shower.
Yeah.
I mean, just, they're fooling around and they fell down.
That's great that we're doing it.
Yeah.
Really great.
Really informative.
I just want to say that I'm personally very proud of you and the high school and your counselors for taking the risk in that area and really calling kids together and making a safe place for them to help understand what they're going through and what others need to know. And I've been very impressed over the years with how groups have formed as needs have been evidenced, but may not have been really pinpointed to the
Right.
point where everybody else would
Right.
see the real criticality of bringing people together to share what
Oh,
is
yeah.
a shared need.
Yeah, the
Thank
groups have been a real highlight for me in my career, yeah. One of the things we're struggling with, just so that you understand the implications, is that right now we don't have a room for group. We've tried to negotiate one, but we lost. So we're really struggling next year for space for group, because a room for kids to talk about things like that needs to be, it has to feel right, and so we're searching, but we're looking hard for that for next year.
I see Dr. Dolan's pen moving.
I saw that. I was very happy.
That is always
Good first step.
Any help is appreciated.
always a good step.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great job.
Okay, I'd like to ask the board to, are there any comments or questions from the public? Okay. I'd like to ask the board to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on March 24th, 2014, March 25th, 2014, and the private minutes of March 24th and March 25th, 2014. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I need to abstain.
Yeah, I have to abstain from the 25th.
Okay, Mitch is abstaining from the 25th.
And the 24th.
And Lucy is
Oh,
abstaining from
and the 24th. Sorry, both the 24th and 25th, sorry.
I'm abstaining for whichever of those evenings was a
I'm trying to see what I missed.
Oh, God.
Okay.
I know I missed one week. so-
Barbara's earning her pay tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get all that, Barbara? Okay. Personnel.
Oh, that would be me.
There's an addendum on there.
Yes, I'd like the board to consider personnel items 1 through 15. Could I have a second?
Second.
Jeannie, thank you. Dr. Dolan?
Yes, we do have one retirement tonight. Tonight, I'm announcing the retirement of Kathleen Ellis. Kathleen Ellis is a basic skills teacher at Lincoln School. She has taught actually for 42 years, with the last 15 of them in Westfield. She's taught both as a resource room teacher and also as a basic skills teacher in a few of our district elementary schools. And Kathy has an absolute love of literacy and helping young students with their literacy. She's been instrumental in helping students gain confidence with their reading skills over the years. The colleagues in the various schools will be missing Kathy's collegial rapport and her wonderful sense of humor. We wish her the best.
Any other comments or questions? Barbara, please.
Lucy Ziegler. Yes. Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Roseanne Kursted.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg.
Yes.
Mitchell Slater.
Yes.
That move goes to facilities. Rich is not here.
We have a meeting Friday morning,
Right.
8 a.m.
Long-range planning, facility.
We have a meeting coming up on the 24th.
That sounds correct.
24th, Thursday the 24th. And members of the committee will receive a package of information this Friday regarding areas of interest that other board members have given me topics to look into. If there are any other topics that you would like to communicate, please do.
Policies.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just writing a note that I owe
Send Ginny
Ginny
information.
something. I would like to ask the board to consider policy items number 1 and 2. Can I have a second, please? Ginny, thank you. So we are approving for second reading 2230, 2510, which were discussed and had some minor changes after first reading, which were circulated to you in your packets on Friday. And then we're also approving for second reading to abolish policies 3220 and 3222 because they are no longer needed given we have replaced them with another policy. So, does anybody have any questions, comments? Jenny, thank you for marshaling us through the changes on the first two last time around.
All good?
Okay, Barbara.
Lucy Ziegler.
Yes.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Roseanne Kursted.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg.
Yes.
Mitchell Slater.
Yes.
And then I would like to ask the board to consider policy item 3 to affirm the superintendent's decisions on HIB incidents 14E06, E07, E08, E09, and R05. Can I have a second, please? Jenny. Barbara.
Lucy Ziegler.
Those were from the last meeting, right?
Right.
Yeah. Abstain.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Roseanne Kursted.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg.
I abstain.
Mitchell Slater.
I abstain courteously. It's an old 17th figure. Go ahead.
3-3, are we, is that enough?
History buffs will get that.
All right, we'll check into that.
I don't have anything else. Thank
Okay.
you.
Curriculum instruction and programs. I'd like to go a little out of order. I'd like to ask the board to approve items 1 and 3. Item 1 being curricula that has been aligned to the Common Core standards, and that's language arts, English 1, 2, 3, 4, and writer's craft. And then I'd like to also ask the board to approve for second reading the following curricula under world language and mathematics. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mitch. Are there any questions or comments?
What is that? What does number 1 mean? Or is this
Okay, the
equivalent
curriculum
of
was,
a
the
first
curriculum,
reading, or?
that's a first reading, yes. But the curriculum wasn't changed. It was just the.
Reorganized to align with
reorganized to
standards.
align with the standards.
Got it, thank you.
And that was the same with 2 as well, right?
No, 2 is a changed curriculum. We're not voting on it right now because we're gonna have a presentation. So
Okay,
just
that's what I was
one
gonna
and-
ask you what
right,
it
just
was.
1 and
Okay.
3.
Okay,
Okay, we're good.
Lucy Bigler,
yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Roseanne Kirstead,
Yes,
Cindy Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Oley.
Yes.
Mitchell Slater.
Yes.
okay. Now, item number 2, if Pam Garcia Ackerman would like to come up. She is the, Ackerman Garcia, sorry, dyslexia. She is the supervisor of language arts, and as you can see on our agenda, we have the approval of first reading for intermediate English language arts, and that's grades 6 through 8. And this is a curriculum revision, and so we thought it best for Pam to come in and give us the nitty-gritty details of the revision. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. Glad to be here. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the Common Core State Standards, which is the thread that is prevalent in these new documents. So when looking at the Common Core State Standards, we think about the foundational shifts that really impact our curriculums, and one of those being the focus now on informational text. In our lower grades, in grades K through 5, we have a balancing of informational and literature, which is somewhat new to our students. And then as we move up into 6th through 12th grade, it's a focus, a heavier focus on informational text, and with that comes the idea of academic vocabulary and citing sources and writing to sources and text-based questions. Why I'm mentioning that is because our lens has changed when looking at the types of curriculum and looking at what we need to ensure that our teachers are teaching. With our ELA grades 6, 7, and 8 grade curriculum, we approach this a little differently. As a collaborative group, we met and really started diving really into the Common Core State Standards to ensure that our teachers actually shared practices and discussed the approaches of addressing these shifts and addressing to make sure that that transition is not only cohesive because of our new elementary curriculums, but also that it gets our students to the high school and aligns them also to what is important to prepare them for college and career readiness. With that being said, we did somewhat of a backwards design. So we sat and we looked at the standards and we saw what needed to be addressed in each of the grades 6th, 7th, and 8th, and worked as a collaborative group to create units of study that is based on a balanced literacy approach. And that balanced literacy approach is explicitly teaching skills using authentic literature. It is it's a curricular methodology that integrates various modalities of literacy instruction. And with that, ensuring that we stay true to what our teachers do best and what they know, and to keep those authentic texts and those novels and pieces of literature that we are proud of using. I'm going to give you an example. In grade 6, we would say something like we were teaching Watson's Go to Birmingham, and we would read the book together as a group. We no longer would say that we're teaching Watson's. We are now teaching the skills that are extrapolated from that book, using it as a vehicle. But not only teaching those skills, but also taking it outside of that and taking a humanities approach, ensuring that our students understood what was going on during the time, that they understood the author's perspective, that they were reading primary documents in social studies to ensure that they understood what the law and the government is talking about. That is an interdisciplinary approach that not only exposes our students to more complex texts, but also has our students working inside of these texts. And those types of skills and strategies that we're teaching our students will prepare them for college and career readiness. and actually working inside these informational texts. The changes in the document are not only a balanced literacy vision, but we also took into consideration the 40 minutes that we have to teach our reading and writing. I think it's really important when creating a document to be realistic about what we're teaching and to use our time wisely. So when you talk about reading and writing in a balanced literacy approach, you're talking about using your reading, what you're doing in literature, and using that as a tool for your writing. With that, we created essential questions that drive each of our units. Not only our units that we're teaching in language arts, but also dipping into our social studies and science. It's important to collaborate with those teachers as well, because no longer is the language arts teacher just the reading teacher, but now accountable is our science and our social studies teachers, as they are teaching reading skills inside of their disciplines, because we're teaching using primary documents. We're talking about using skills that not only are in one discipline. There's an emphasis on aligning our texts to, again, as I said, the humanities approach, but also a writing focus of argumentative and opinion. In the early grades now, the Common Core allows that our students, our kindergarten students, are actually writing opinion pieces. So they get that exposure where they would just write an I like story, a narrative. And now they're actually talking to us about like what they actually like and giving their opinion. And they're carrying that through to third grade, where they're giving their opinion about whether they want to be outside in recess. And then in fifth grade, they're continuing that process, where they get to sixth grade and they talk about an argument. And they have to base it in evidence. And so this spiral effect of this early exposure will then prepare them for when they go into college and career, where they actually have to cite textual evidence, where they have to do research papers, where they have to support their evidence in text. And so this continuity, starting in kindergarten, and then the focuses as they roll up through the years, now puts them at a different spot. What I did find working with our teachers, not only are they incredibly talented, and it's a pleasure to work with all of them, but that our students are equally as talented and challenging. And so to design a curriculum that will challenge them, but to also prepare them, was a really quite wonderful experience. I think that's it.
Great. That's great.
Any questions?
So just to quickly understand, so 6 through 8, first of all, that was awesome. Being a literature background person, I was really into everything you're saying.
Thank you.
But I thought, so you had said that it's being revised. I thought everything you said sounds like what we're doing. So I think we're doing all of that great stuff already. So are we just revising it to better align to the Common Core?
Looking at our documents, our 6 to 8, our grade 6 to 8, we do, because Westfield doesn't meet this, because Westfield doesn't just stop at the standard. We've always gone above the standard. That many of the focuses of the Common Core have already been established there. We have realigned it so that the focus is on a stronger informational text. So for example, when I was saying that we teach Watson's Go to Birmingham, the teacher not only teaches that novel, but they also teach some articles that are alongside with it, where before they probably didn't go from that perspective. It's more of a humanities perspective, because our lens has changed when looking at the types of curriculum and looking at what we need to ensure that our teachers are teaching. With our ELA grade 6, 7, and 8 grade curriculum, we approach this a little differently. As a collaborative group, we met and really started diving really into the Common Core state standards to ensure that our teachers actually shared practices and discussed the approaches of addressing these shifts and addressing to make sure that that transition is not only cohesive because of our new elementary curriculums, but also that it gets our students to the high school and aligns them also to what is important to prepare them for college and career readiness. With that being said, we did somewhat of a backwards design. So we sat and we looked at the standards and we saw what needed to be addressed in each of the grades 6th, 7th, and 8th, and worked as a collaborative group to create units of study that is based on a balanced literacy approach. And that balanced literacy approach is explicitly teaching skills using authentic literature. It is it's a curricular methodology that integrates various modalities of literacy instruction. And with that, ensuring that we stay true to what our teachers do best and what they know, and to keep those authentic texts and those novels and pieces of literature that we are proud of using. I'm going to give you an example. In grade 6, we would say something like we were teaching Watson's Go to Birmingham, and we would read the book together as a group. We no longer would say that we're teaching Watson's. We are now teaching the skills that are extrapolated from that book, using it as a vehicle. But not only teaching those skills, but also taking it outside of that and taking a humanities approach, ensuring that our students understood what was going on during the time, that they understood the author's perspective, that they were reading primary documents in social studies to ensure that they understood what the law and the government is talking about. That is an interdisciplinary approach that not only exposes our students to more complex texts, but also has our students working inside of these texts. And those types of skills and strategies that we're teaching our students will prepare them for college and career readiness. And actually working inside these informational texts. The changes in the document are not only a balanced literacy vision, but we also took into consideration the 40 minutes that we have to teach our reading and writing. I think it's really important when creating a document to be realistic about what we're teaching and to use our time wisely. So when you talk about reading and writing in a balanced literacy approach, you're talking about using your reading, what you're doing in literature, and using that as a tool for your writing. With that, we created essential questions that drive each of our units. Not only our units that we're teaching in language arts, but also dipping into our social studies and science. It's important to collaborate with those teachers as well, because no longer is the language arts teacher just the reading teacher, but now accountable is our science and our social studies teachers, as they are teaching reading skills inside of their disciplines, because we're teaching using primary documents. We're talking about using skills that not only are in one discipline. There's an emphasis on aligning our texts to, again, as I said, the humanities approach, but also a writing focus of argumentative and opinion. In the early grades now, the Common Core allows that our students, our kindergarten students, are actually writing opinion pieces. So they get that exposure where they would just write an I like story, a narrative. And now they're actually talking to us about like what they actually like and giving their opinion. And they're carrying that through to 3rd grade, where they're giving their opinion about whether they want to be outside in recess. And then in 5th grade, they're continuing that process where they get to 6th grade and they talk about an argument. And they have to base it in evidence. And so this spiral effect of this early exposure will then prepare them for when they go into college and career, where they actually have to cite textual evidence, where they have to do research papers, where they have to support their evidence in text. And so this continuity, starting in kindergarten, and then the focuses as they roll up through the years, now puts them at a different spot. What I did find working with our teachers, not only are they incredibly talented, and it's a pleasure to work with all of them, but that our students are equally as talented and challenging. And so to design a curriculum that will challenge them, but to also prepare them, was a really quite wonderful experience. I think that's it.
Great. That's great.
Any questions?
So just to quickly understand, so 6 through 8, first of all, that was awesome. Being a literature background person, I was really into everything you're saying.
Thank you.
But I thought, so you had said that it's being revised. I thought everything you said sounds like what we're doing. So I think we're doing all of that great stuff already. So are we just revising it to better align to the Common Core?
Looking at our documents, our grade 6 to 8, because Westfield doesn't meet this, because Westfield doesn't just stop at the standard. We've always gone above the standard. That many of the focuses of the Common Core have already been established there. We have realigned it so that the focus is on a stronger informational text. So for example, when I was saying that we teach Watson's Go to Birmingham, the teacher not only teaches that novel, but they also teach some articles that are alongside with it, where before they probably didn't go from that perspective. It's more of a humanities perspective.
Okay.
Incorporating academic vocabulary with that, incorporating a writing piece that would give an opinion on why do you think that the author was making statements about a particular, or why the character did something. So incorporating those two, that's what our curriculums now are reflective
No, because I
of.
think my daughter's in 7th grade, so I see and I grin to myself with all her sticky notes of her evidence of everywhere that she's looking, and I love that she's doing all that. So that's why I go, okay, so I understand. So it's more from that approach. Okay.
And I think it's also, you're seeing it in the classrooms now, because the Common Core and kids are being tested, not only because they're being tested on that, but it's also, you're teaching them to think critically and take into account point of view and perspective. But teachers have been incorporating those kinds of things in the curriculum this year, or in their teaching this year, as the document was being written.
Exactly.
So
that was part of our collaboration. So when we met during department meetings after school, in our curriculum collaborations, we were actually living the document as we wrote it. So we would be designing like an historical fiction unit, and we would be literally working through it, and as a 6th grade team, 7th grade team, and 8th grade team, we would ensure that spiral would happen, and so that there was continuity and consistency. So in the 3 documents, you'll see that in the scope and sequence. You'll see those consistencies because the Common Core provides that foundation. So whether I created a document kindergarten through 8th grade, you will see that spiral going through because those same key elements are the core of the Common Core.
I just also want to say, I do, commend Westfield because we are ahead of the curve, and, especially doing balanced literacy. I think, especially if you raised your kids here from the time they were little, you don't realize the other things that are out there to teach, literature. Most aren't done through balanced literacy. A lot are done through basal readers. There isn't authentic literature. There isn't all of this that goes into it, and, I think it can be taken for granted what we do, but this is not what's common, and I think it's great that Westfield does do balanced literacy. So I just wanted to make that point.
I just also wanted to bring up, just to follow up on instead of teaching the novel, they're teaching the skills, and one way teachers are beginning to do that, and I know this because of the SIP committee, the discussion we had, that there might be a mentor text that the whole class is reading, but then kids are reading in book clubs, either books of interest or on their level or interest and level, all within possibly the same theme, whether it's on friendship or survival based on the essential question. But so that, again, it's about kids internalizing and using the skills on their own, in their own reading. And it's also teaching kids that we gain comprehension through talk with peers, because we're active readers, and each person brings their own, point of view to the text and pulls what they can out of it. So a lot of the book clubs and really getting kids to use the skills that were initially taught just through one text.
Which are
If that makes
skills that
sense.
are being brought up from the K through 5
Right.
curriculum. So it flows a little. I mean, the presentation that we had at the curriculum committee I think we could have talked all day. It was
Yeah.
great to see how y'all had developed and worked together as a group to development. Did you talk about the humanities piece as well? How, I may have zoned out for a second, but how the language arts teachers
Yes.
are working with The
One-
other.
One of the, again, with that humanities approach, I should probably say that with, not only with the curriculum, but guiding documents, this group, our middle school group, has also created guiding documents, which I think really creates that systemic approach to ensure that our 2 middle schools and all of our 6th grades, 7th grade, and 8th grades are on the same page. I think I should note that Edline is going to be a wonderful source as we, not only in our middle schools, but in kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade, can use that as a resource, our pages to share our documents and share our units and be able to see. Because the Common Core is so aligned sequentially, it provides opportunity for students to be able to differentiate where they might not know where to go. So for example, when a student excels, you could look at the next grade level to see what the next step up would be for that particular standard. But it's quite amazing when you can sit there and go onto Edline and look at the elementary resource page and find a unit that would challenge. And so that type of tapping into that resource is going to be an incredible resource for our teachers. I get the perch, which I truly love, and I thank you for allowing me to be here. That I get to see the classrooms across the district, not only from K to 12, which is always a wonderful opportunity, but also a 6th grade right across the district. And I often try to stop in their rooms the same day or the same week to ensure that I can see what they're doing. But when we gather and have conversations, I'm always saying, oh, I just saw this in somebody's classroom, or I was in the 8th grade classroom and this is what they were teaching. And because we're following maps and creating these teacher tools to ensure that we're on the same page, all the greatness can get shared, because lots of great happenings happen all across our district. And so I'm lucky because I get to see it and I talk about it. But it's quite wonderful to use our resources online that are right here for our teachers to just be able to go and look at those resources. So I think that is like a wonderful place to, not only for our language arts teachers, but then to expand to our social studies and science teachers, as they are now becoming more responsible for ensuring these skills and strategies inside of their text. And part of informational text is not only the memoirs and the biographies we read in language arts, but also the science books and the math books and the social studies books, for our students to be able to use those strategies to read primary documents and to make predictions in science. Have our students in our science classes writing journals, entries that are reflecting on what do they think is going to happen next. Well, that sounds an awful lot like what they do in language arts, what's going to happen to that character. So for them to create that common thread and that conversation and collaboration is really essential in preparing our students. So these documents lend themselves to that.
I also wanted to mention something else that we talked about, which was grammar, and that grammar is weaved throughout all of the units and is something that the teachers have also charged themselves with.
Yes.
Creating resources for grammar and really coming up with what they want to focus on at the different grade levels for the expectations for kids in grammar. So
Again,
that
that's
is
part of our teacher documents, doing a K through 8 sequential order of what is the accountability piece for each of the grammar, which is embedded in actually the workshop model. So our students do not get taught that in isolation. We know that if they get taught and they practice how to correct a sentence, they're not going to then translate that into their writing. So we ensure that that happens as we do in the elementary school. We ensure that happens in the middle school, and as we see it in the high school as well, that inside what they're writing and what they're reading, that they actually learn these skills.
One more question, sorry. It's because I saw you have writer's craft for number 1. So for elementary level, just keeping the same thread going, being that writing is something that's difficult to teach and there's not always something to lend itself to help, how do they keep that same commonality going with how they're teaching how to write well in the lower grades, K through 5?
Our elementary initiative is the workshop model, and that is a component of the balanced literacy approach. So we have done extensive training, collaboration around the workshop model and how to teach writing. Again, when you think about the balanced literacy approach, you're focusing on different writing skills, but then you're also using authentic text to show how that author actually did that. So those connections are a best practice. So our balanced literacy approach not only incorporates best practices, which our teachers have a plethora of. I have to say, we have had wonderful training. We've been very lucky, so thank you so much for that. Our teachers, not only have they gained this new knowledge, but they've also learned to incorporate their teacher toolbox into what they're doing. The workshop model is a framework, and it's a wonderful framework. It is a consistent, systemic approach. But it is important to not forget what we do well. And so I constantly tell teachers, you have been successful for a very, very long time. Do not lose that. Make sure you can find a way to fit that in. And I think that's what separates us from the rest, is that our teachers have taken what we've done really well for a long time, and now they've just raised the bar to the workshop model. And that will excel us into the next.
Do you need to do something? Yeah.
Yeah,
Jenny?
two things I wanted to mention, and this is coming out of the SIP committee, again, which I loved the conversation. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we talked about a goal for this coming year, which was ensuring and conversing about consistency of the rollout of this new curriculum across schools and among the grades. And how you were going to make that a real focus and goal.
And common language.
Yeah.
The teacher
So
talked a lot about.
I had earlier mentioned that we were creating not only with this curriculum document, but also what I consider to be teacher curriculum documents. And these are living documents that are revisited on a weekly, monthly basis. So one of those documents is something called a curriculum map. And so it's a living document that is based on, we actually created that first, I'm going to say that. We did a backwards design. We looked at our standards, we made a list of what we needed to teach. We combined reading and writing genres together to say, well, what would you match as a reading genre with a writing genre, because that's the way you teach. And then what we did was we created these units of study. And when we created the units of study, then we looked a little further and said, well, what kind of skills would you teach when you're teaching an opinion piece? What types of strategies would you focus on? And after laying that map out, we then said, well, traditionally, when you're going to teach an opinion piece, what kind of book have you usually taught? And then we gave some mentor text, as Roseanne was talking about earlier. Not to say they had to do those texts, but our teachers do use these mentor texts, and so that they're using them differently, but they do have options, because we do have book rooms where there's board-approved books with the same themes as our across the board. So that allows some type of teacher autonomy in the tool that they actually use, meaning, or the vehicle that they teach those skills and those strategies, but the genres that they're actually addressing are all in that map, and they are actually in a sequential order, building off of each other, again, based on the standards. So, for example, when I go in for a marshal, I often would sit there and say, whether it's myself or the building-based administrator, so where are you in the curriculum? And that, and looking at, again, I often like to go across the board, you can see this commonality that happens on what they're teaching. It might not look exactly the same, because they'll be in a different place, because it's based on students' needs, so some move a little faster, but within a certain time frame, it actually is. That does two things. It really cuts down the gaps in education. So when you think about how we teach, and this is also what we designed in K through 5. So when you look at the whole scope of education and what we're teaching our students, as a teacher, you always love to focus on things you do really well or things that you love. And so I'm going to teach poetry because I love it, and so I might spend more time and never get to how to write an opinion piece. But then my children go out into the second grade, and those children are sprinkled, and maybe they haven't had as much exposure to that opinion piece. So I have to go very wide as a second grade teacher, and that just is multiplied over the years. So when you create a district curriculum map that keeps everybody on a schedule, that you can ask where you are in the curriculum, but yet give the autonomy of the actual vehicle that they use to teach those skills and those genres, you're on the same page. And so for what that means for a district like Westfield is that it's not so easy to go from really great to even better, but now you can because everybody is on the same page. And those gaps get even less as you start from kindergarten and have consistency up until 8th grade. And then, of course, when you get to the high school, we're on our page. It is incredibly important. That happens over time, where you can say every first grade teacher, there's 25 teachers in Westfield teaching from the same map. That's powerful. And the resources that are part of that are even better. They never have to go online again. They don't have to go to Pinterest or any of those places. They can just go to Westfield Edline and our elementary page.
And one of the other things that will support this, that Roseanne just also alluded to, stated, that you're building repositories of best practice and demonstration information, mentorable
Yeah, 100%.
documents
Yeah.
that can travel around for people so that those who have done something and done it well then can share.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can explain it a little better.
So again, some of those documents are common practices. Our Edline is going to provide that foundation or that platform for us. We've even gotten our literacy coaches in our elementary and also in our middle school. We don't have literacy coaches, but we have teachers that are willing to be videotaped, where an exemplar lesson would be, again, aligned to that curriculum map, to that genre, to that unit, and that could be uploaded, and then teachers can actually say, well, this is what a good example of teaching this unit looks like. Not only see it as a unit plan and the vocabulary list that goes along with it, but also see it in action with our children, and that's a big difference. Consistent documents, so as we move along this year, we keep coming up with our list that's longer and longer, a glossary of terms, a grammar sequential order from K to 8, a document that dips into social studies and science.
Examples of student work.
Yeah, examples of student work. I just spoken with Andrea Lowe, and we're getting our, you have to remember we have also our in-class support teachers and our resource rooms. They have to also be on the same page, so we're going to have folders of modification for modification curriculum documents and units to say, well, if this is where I am in 8th grade language arts, then this could be a unit for, that I'm doing in the resource room, so they can connect the two, so the conversation is there. I think that will make the curriculum document, the map, will actually allow for more collaboration, not only across content areas, but also with the special ed.
So exciting.
Good stuff.
Yep.
Really good stuff.
Thank you.
I'm very
Anything
lucky.
else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Comments from the public? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we vote on that, I did just want to circle back to the English 1, 2, 3, and 4 that was aligned to the Common Core curriculum standards. They're on the schedule to be revised next year. So the process that the intermediate grades went through, the English department will go through, and it sort of has begun already because they had to look at the curriculum, the current curriculum, and align it with the standards. So it was a nice sort of jumping off point, and the teachers are already sort of thinking about ways that they can revise the English 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that will be exciting for next year. So I would like to ask the board to approve for first reading the following curricula. Language Arts, Intermediate English Language Arts 6 through 8. May I have a second? Thank you, Mitch.
Lucy Ziegler,
Absolutely.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Roseanne Kursted,
Yes.
Jenny Lights,
Yes.
Gretchen Rowley,
Yes.
Mitchell Slater.
Yes.
And I apologize, but under item 3, there were 2 other curricula that I didn't state out. Is that okay? That means
We read
since I
it.
said item 3,
We
okay.
read.
And I'd like to ask the board to approve item number 4, the following district field trips. May I have a second? Thank you, Ginny. Barbara?
Lucy Ziegler,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Roseanne Kursted.
Yes.
Jenny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Rowley.
Yes.
Mitchell Slater.
Yes.
Finance.
I'd like the board to consider finance items 1 through 8. Have a second? Mitch, thanks. Any questions? Comments? Barbara?
Lucy Ziegler,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Roseanne Kursted,
Yes.
Jenny Lights,
Yes.
Gretchen Rowley,
Yes.
Mitchell Slater.
Yes.
Legislation, we are meeting on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Technology report.
No report tonight.
I'd like to note the notes for the record. Any unfinished business? New business? Liaison reports. Ginny.
Yes. On April 2nd, I attended Union County Ed Services Commission Board of Directors meeting. And on the 3rd, I attended the PTC President's meeting, at which time Dana gave good answers to prior questions that had been raised regarding transportation, especially gifted and talented bus procedures. A couple of questions came up that I think are important to just take note of here. One was about the air conditioning grants that the district received from the state. Dana did mention that excessive costs has meant we won't proceed with all of them. We're looking for less expensive options. The grant does not cover window units, which are less than permanent structures. So she did state that we won't go ahead with installing newly requested air conditioning units until the Facilities Committee has had time to more fully discuss what our strategy will be with air conditioning. Although we did talk about the fact that the board would be looking for individual PTOs to continue fundraising to try to help with the funding of air conditioning in schools, but not necessarily with window units. We also talked about the summer recreation program and the impact of the roof project schedule on our schools. I know that's been being worked out with the Recreation Commission as to how to hold the rec department daily activity for some of the schools. A couple of the schools will only have outdoor recreation time available to them, and bathrooms and wings that are not being used for roofing. There have been some concern raised by Facilities Committee, and I think we'll be addressing that again Friday morning regarding whether or not how we want to handle this summer program, because we have so much work at elementary schools this summer with roofing. There was one question, Dr. Dolan, I did want to raise, and I forgot to mention it to you, and that was regarding the website upgrade and going to Edline, the use of a district-wide calendar and the ability to have a living calendar used for planning. A number of concerns were raised. Data at a school can be pushed down, but peer school events aren't pushed to other schools.
Right. At this
Yeah.
point, the plan is we're putting the major events that impact district-wide, that will be on the district calendar, and then that will also populate school-level calendar as well. But I will tell you, we do not have all the answers. When you think about how complicated all of our school calendars are on any given day, you can't really put that on one calendar. And so I think we'll have more to learn, but there will be a district calendar with the major things, and that will populate school calendars as well. And then remember, there's also classroom calendars. Everybody has calendars. So as much as we might want it, everything can't be on every calendar. So I'm sure we'll get better at it as we go forward. But we'll start with the basics.
Right. So I think that the answer just is that we're learning, we're trying to really understand the needs and provide access, if not all in one place, at least access that's data that's reliable.
Right.
Yep.
I'll just follow up. Just since you raised the air conditioning issue, I've attended 2 PTO meetings, one before that president's meeting and one after. And in both instances, the issue of air conditioning was raised. And I know there seems to be some confusion. So I'm just hopeful that the facilities committee can address it sooner rather than later so that we can get the words out, because I know the PTOs are anxious to help however they can, but they don't quite yet know what that looks like, so.
That's true, there were at least
two, McKinley Jefferson.
right, McKinley
I'm sure.
Jefferson were
Those are the ones-
interested.
Oh, I was at Wilson.
And I'll be at
Wilson
McKinley
seemed- I
Thursday.
think Wilson has window units, and so they're like, anyway, I just hope, yeah, we can.
I was at the Roosevelt PTSO board meeting today, and it also came up. So, yeah, I tried to clarify, but I'm not sure we have total clarification at the time. I mean,
Right.
yet.
And I did not know that the grants could not be matched for purposes of window units.
Yeah, I didn't know that
only,
either
so-
until just now.
Well, we're getting clarification, but the understanding so far was that they are not permanent structures. Although our architect is looking into a more minimal approach than a school-wide or wing-wide, unit.
Right.
To see what scaled down options we have that would fulfill room needs and would fulfill the grants. And we don't really know the outcome of that yet, so hopefully we'll know more on Friday.
Okay.
And the other thing is that the grants are available to us for 18 months from the date that we received notification that we were given them. And at that point, the expiration date is, for the most part, May or June 2015. When we accept a grant, we can accept the grant initially, but to activate it, we actually have to, Dana has to attest that we have funds available.
Within 18 months.
Yes. Within that 18-month period. And we received grants, I think it was December and January of this year. So it's a balancing act. These are expensive projects. Money has been made available by the state, whether or not we can take advantage. We're trying to see what the best approach is going to be, because it is a very, has evoked a lot of interest,
Yes, that's for sure.
public interest.
I was at the Roosevelt PTSO board meeting today, and they are very thankful that the painting will get done. And they were also excited to hear about the auditorium consultation that's happening, and that attention is being paid to the auditorium. So they're very thankful and appreciative. That's all. Anything else? Recognize the public for questions or comments. Okay, I'd like the board to approve the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education move into private session for the purpose of discussing matters rendered confidential by the state and federal law, personnel pending or anticipated litigation, and pending or anticipated contract negotiations, and be it further resolved that any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential, and the results of the discussion will be made public as soon as practicable. May I have a second? Thank you, Ginny. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned.
Kick you out.